In the meantime, declarations from different MPs continue to trickle in the most open Tory leadership contest for years. But questions abound about the timetable, the desirability of a protracted contest in the middle of an economic crisis, and the legitimacy of 100,000 or so Conservative activists ultimately choosing the next Prime Minister for some 67 million of us. Julian Knight is the Conservative MP for Solihull and chair of Parliament's Culture Select Committee. I spoke to him earlier and I asked him who he was backing to be the next Tory leader.
Yeah, I'm going to back Liz Truss. The main reason for it is probably my own personal experience. I worked with her in the Treasury. I saw her working first-hand with colleagues. In fact, she's not factional at all. She's a really warm person, a sense of humour, the longest-serving cabinet minister. And I think, frankly, that when we got taxed at a 70-year high, I think that we need a path out of this current situation. And I think that she holds the key, the best way in which to effectively see us through to the next general election.
When you called earlier in the week for Boris Johnson to step down, you talked about a change in direction. Is that what you meant on the economic side, or are there other things as well?
I come from the part of the party which is economically conservative and socially quite liberal. So that's where my instincts lie, generally. And I think that Liz's instincts can come from a very similar place, particularly on the economic side. And what we do need to do is we need to ensure that we work our way to a lower tax economy. I really do think that at this juncture, this point in time, we do need someone with the experience that Liz has, who isn't factional and has that engagement that she does have with colleagues.
You talk about being factional and the dangers of that. Before we move on, I wonder what your reaction is and whether you're concerned about this. I mean, we're 48 hours into this contest now. We're already seeing briefing from Number 10 about the former Chancellor. We're seeing the Culture Secretary talking about the former Chancellor. Briefing galore in the newspapers about each of the different candidates. I mean, this is supposed to be a fresh start. Is there not a danger that by the time we get to the end of this, whoever wins is just profoundly damaged by the process itself, and therefore the party with it?
I would call on all colleagues to take a bit of a chill pill on this, because they can't really effectively tear lumps out of each other.
And Number 10 as well?
Sure. Well, I think, frankly, Number 10, I don't know what's emanating from there. I've sort of not really been across that for quite a long time, you might say. When it comes to the Culture Secretary, I have quite a long experience of her social media utterances. What I'd probably just say there is best let's just draw a veil on that and let's just focus on a suite of candidates, all of whom I think should be pretty top draw. Let's have an open, honest discussion. Let's talk about the policies, and then let's come together behind a new leader.
Just before we started talking, heard the news that Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary, isn't going to be standing. Now, many people have been surprised by the talk of some of the candidates who are going to be standing, but Mr Wallace was one of those who was much fancied. What's your reaction to his withdrawal or not entering the race at all?
I was surprised, of course. He's obviously a very, very capable Defence Minister, and maybe he just feels as if he needs to really focus on that right now. You know, it's a personal decision, and each to their own in that respect. It isn't for everyone. You know, I mean, are
you thinking about standing?
Absolutely not.
Why?
No.
Well, why not, Julian? Almost everybody else is.
Lewis, I can't imagine anything I would least like to do than to stand for leadership of the Conservative or any other party, because it just isn't my way of thinking.
In all seriousness, though, I mean, obviously we have got a real surfeit of candidates and potential candidates. Do you think there is just a danger of having potentially too many people in this race? There is talk about the 1922 committee increasing the threshold of the number of MPs that you would need to have to even stand in the first place. Is that something that you would support?
I'm not certain whether or not I support it, because I want as broad a dialogue as possible. But the truth of the matter is that there's lots of people who at leadership time talk about taking soundings, etc., etc. But often what you find is that in the final analysis, we come down quite quickly to 2 or 3 runners and riders, and I think that'll be the case here.
And just finally, just one question, something slightly different. You may have seen one of your colleagues, a new Minister of the Crown, no less, Andrea Jenkins, outside of Downing Street yesterday, new Education Minister, performing, shall we say, an obscene gesture to people outside the gates of Downing Street. What did you make of that? And do you think that that is appropriate behaviour for a Minister of the Crown?
Well, look, we've all been in a situation as politicians where we've faced abuse, been shouted at, etc., etc.
I bet you've never done that.
I've never done that, no. I find the best way to do that is literally just to block it out and get on and get in and get on with your job, and I think that's the way in which people should behave. What I focus on is the fact that we need to ensure the party now goes in the right direction, and that we have a leader in place.
It's not appropriate, though, is it? It's not appropriate behaviour for an MP, for anyone in public.
It's never appropriate for any, Lewis. It's never appropriate for anyone to flick single fingers or V's at people. It's something which is not appropriate,
especially
in any respect, in any walk of life. Frankly, you do it, I do it. If we did that, I don't do it in the car. I don't do it in normal life. So no, of course, it's not appropriate.
Julian Knight, the MP for Solihull there, and talking